Okay, here we go. This is the second in the Guitar Talk series, and this is my good friend, long-time friend, and very, very well-known bassist, Nelson McFarlane. So, here we go. It's the usual questions. I'll let Nelson do the talking. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, mate.
That's very, very good.
And what questions do you have for me?
What questions do I have? Right, the standard ones are, what's the first guitar you ever had?
I'm struggling to remember that, to be honest. It was either both copies. It was either an EBC copy or a Telecaster bass copy. It's one of the two that I can't remember.
Right.
Oh no, wait a minute, I tell a lie. The first guitar I ever had was a crappy old Spanish guitar that my auntie brought back from her holidays.
Yeah.
And that's what got me into playing. Because
Did it fall apart?
More or less.
Never mind it.
But I'd play along with the radio and stuff and work things out, and the way that a lot of people start playing the guitar.
Yeah, I had the same sort of thing. The first one I can really remember was out of my aunt's catalogue,
Uh-huh.
right? Because my aunt used to go around the flats, and everyone would buy their kids their school gear, and she'd build up this credit, and she bought me this thing, that Tony Steele guitar, and you know, cliche things with that off the board. Then I got a gold top Antoria, and then I got the SG that I had. Do you remember when we first met, by the way?
No.
I know exactly where we met.
Where was it?
There was a place in Edinburgh called, it was called The Moon. It was a cinema called the Regent Cinema
All right, okay.
at Abbey Hill,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And Nelson had moved to Cadiz
Uh-huh.
from Gilt Edge, and I was playing with Gilt Edge, who changed their name to Dark Angels.
Right,
Dark
and there was
Angel.
rehearsal rooms.
And there was rehearsal rooms, and you popped down one night.
Uh-huh.
I'd seen you play, I'd seen you play in Gilt Edge, in the White Cocaine and stuff,
Right.
in Edinburgh, and you came down one night, because obviously you would know Stevie and Bruce
Yeah.
and Alex.
Yeah.
That was the first time I
Right.
met you.
I don't remember. Mind you, there was a lot of stuff going on there.
Well, there you go, there you go. We promised not to say that, but we just have. So, very briefly, Nelson can tell you far better than I can, but Nelson was in Gilt Edge, who were absolutely fabulous. He then went to Cadiz, who were absolutely fabulous, and then I kind of lost touch with you for a long time. And I saw you online,
Yeah.
and I just thought that, you know, that you have quite a distinctive name. I didn't think there would be that many people with
There's
that
not
name.
many, no.
No. It's amazing how many David Mays there are.
Is it?
Yeah, there's loads of them. I mean, you know, every now and then someone will go, "Did you used to play for Manchester United?" No, that's different.
Just say yes.
Yeah, and there's an Acid House one. There's an Acid House
course there is.
DJ.
Of course there is.
Still doing it. Right, first bit of music that like grabbed you by the throat. What would that be?
Hendrix, without a doubt.
Alright, that's a good one.
And the moment that it was, I mean, again, this is betraying our ages, is listening to Radio Luxembourg. Hendrix would come on, and I would think, that is just fantastic. And that's when I discovered playing this old Spanish guitar. Oh, you bend strings and it changes the note.
Yeah.
And all that stuff that
Yeah.
you just learn by listening. And I've never had any formal musical education.
You know, the bend in the note there, I can remember exactly where I was. I was sitting in my aunt's flat, I was about 15, and I was holding the high notes, because I'd figured out in my head, although it was a million miles away, that to sound like Paul Kossoff, which is what I had in mind, if you went shooting up the neck and went woo, you know, that would, right. Little did I know. And I was holding this note up the neck, and like you said, just pulled it, and I went, oh, that's it. I mean, Rob Chapman's done quite an interesting video recently about, you know, are you a beginner, an intermediate, or advanced, and why it's important. I don't really like categorization in that, because, you know, some beginner will get up and play circles around all of us, and vice versa. You know, it's just not as cut and dry, I don't think. But he said a really interesting thing. He said it's great to be a beginner, because you're finding stuff every day. Every single day, you're finding something. Oh, I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, it's a cliche, but every day's a school day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Still learn stuff nowadays.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for any player to listen to a range of genres rather than stuck in just being a metal guitarist or just being, you know, in a country band or whatever. You know.
First band?
First band was called Nothing Doing, And
That's right.
it included Bruce Bones that you just mentioned, and Stevie Hawke. No, he wasn't in it. Anyway, it was a school band, and we ended up in a church hall. And the amusing story here is we didn't have enough microphones. It was when columns, of course, you know.
Yeah.
And didn't have enough microphones, so the keys player or the piano player discovered that if you put headphones into an amp, you can use that as a microphone.
Oh, really?
If you turn it round, but it meant that it had.
Oh, that's
It
cool.
looked like Bane out of the Batman films. Way ahead of his time.
That's good.
So
I can remember a microphone. One of the first gigs I ever did was an EC30, which my aunt bought me as well. It had 6 inputs, and
Right.
we put the microphone.
and the guitar
Yeah,
and everything.
Yeah.
Bass as well.
No. The first gig I ever did, we didn't have bass. We had 2 guitars, and it's still my friend to this day, John McCormack. John sung and played. He played guitar through a little. It's one of these tiny little valve amps that you'd probably get in a hi-fi shop. That now people are desperate for because they go, oh, they sounded really good. And I don't know if that's just rose tinted glasses, but he sung and the microphone went into my amp, my guitar. Went into
That's not going to sing good, is it?
it would be. Don't have a tape of it. It's really a good thing.
It's a good thing.
It's really a good thing. So tell me about. I'll tell you my version of this about the whole Gilt Edge thing, because from being like a pub band, I know you kind of don't see it maybe as big as I see it, but from being a pub band you went to that band that everyone was talking about.
Well, I think there's one reason for that, and one alone is Keith Moore. And Keith Moore just raised the game of everyone.
But it's a good band though. I mean, it's, you know,
Aye.
good.
Yeah, I mean, we were enthusiastic, I would say, you know, and we played a lot of pubs around Edinburgh and ended up getting a gig in somewhere like the Glenburn and
Sorry, in the Glenburn.
and a few other gigs. Oh, and played over in Fife as well. So we were starting to get better gigs.
Yeah.
But undoubtedly, Keith, who is sadly no longer with us, he raised the game, and a lot of people came to see the band, I think, because of him, because he was probably the best guitar player or the most advanced guitar player around at that time.
Yeah, I quite often say to people, my favourite guitar player that I've known, I've known personally, is John Mordell. Obviously, sadly, no longer with us. Lee John's son, I just mentioned to you.
Yeah.
Oliver is in Big Iron. But I quite often say to people, Keith is the only sensation I've ever come across in my life. You want to hear my Keith Moore story?
Go on.
Right. Me and my friend Colin, we were about 20, so Keith would be about 16 or 17, so a good chunk younger. We went to this record fair and we came out and there's a flight of steps, right? And this is at the top of Annandale Street, opposite the Playhouse. You can see where this is going, can't you?
No, carry on. No.
Annandale Street was your rehearsal.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So we're standing at the top, me and Colin are standing at the top, and we've bought these bootlegs, and I had official live leg by Tom Petty, and paid the cost to be the boss by Bruce Springsteen. So we came out in the sunlight, and we're like, wow! And we're just like completely excited of buying these rare records. And at the foot of the steps, carrying the chainsaw case, was this very young, very shy looking kid. And like, I am not, tell me I'm wrong, but I am not cynical in the slightest. I just don't see myself as being cynical in the slightest. And for some reason, I stood at the top of the steps, and I sort of went, oh, there you go. Another teenage kid thinks he's going to be Eric Clapton. Never thought any more about it. Over the next few months, people, if you're in a record shop doing that, someone would be at the counter going, have you seen this kid in Gilt Edge? And everyone was talking about him. And then I went to Glenburn one night, and there was the young boy with the chainsaw case. And it was Keith, and he was a sensation. And then obviously around Cadiz.
Yeah, and in Edinburgh terms, he was kind of the gunslinger. He was the
Totally.
You know, and when I was approached by Brodie, as what became Cadiz.
Brodie were a huge band, probably the biggest band in Scotland
at the time, possibly.
Yeah.
Another one of his bands almost made it but didn't. When I was approached, Kenny then told me about 2 weeks after I joined that Justin, who was a guitarist.
I was at primary school with him.
Oh, you? Right, okay. So I'm actually in touch with Justin now.
Yeah, he's on a Facebook page. Yeah.
So Justin decided he was going to up sticks and move to America.
Mm-hmm.
So it looked like the band was about to collapse, couldn't find a guitarist, and I just said, well, you need to hear this guy, Keith. And of course, immediately he got the job.
Sometimes in that era, if someone was round at my flat, I would say, there's this teenage kid in Gilledge, and I'd put on Aldo Miola's Race of the Devil in Spanish Harriers. This is what he sounds like. And that was his thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
He's one of these guys that, to be honest, I think was bordering on the spectrum, because he would sit and rehearse and practice for 9 hours a day.
Were you ever in the sort of the rooms he was in Shepherd's Bush?
No, never was.
Lived there. It was a pretty hand-to-mouth existence. I was down in London one time, and we were sitting like on his bed, and we both had our Les Pauls, and he was playing something, and I was like, what was that? And I said, that's incredible, Keith. And he said, yeah, but I played it 8 hours last night. One little just played over again. And when he started to do the YouTube stuff, when he was demonstrating how he did the alternate picking, and he'd play one line maybe, 32 times, and about maybe the 21st time he'd go, whoa, mess that one up. But it's still pretty good, But,
I spoke to him about 2 years. He came up to Edinburgh and I met him.
Oh, really?
2 years before he died. I think he knew he was dying, to be honest. And he almost said to me that I was right, because I'd said to him a long time ago, listen, less is more, and and just try and play a bit more, a few bends and all that, rather than speed all the time. And he could obviously do the speed all the time, but I think with the benefit of his experience, he became a great guitar player. A lot of musicality and the speed and the technique to go along with it. In fact, he's like a precursor to Matteo Mancuso, I would say.
Yeah, and he kind of, I remember it in London. He let me hear this cassette, and there was like 2 minutes of like Albert Lee, and then 2 minutes of metal, and then 2 minutes of some sort of thing. Could play anything. Yeah. So what did you do after that? After Cadiz?
Cadiz, and then there was a metal band called Mind's Eye, and then there was a few other bands, and then I moved to Glasgow. And
I had Mind's Eye's single.
Aye.
The white one.
Yeah, alright.
In fact, my name's on the back.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, because there's a song that I wrote that they did.
Alright, okay. I didn't even know this existed.
Yeah,
maybe before my time.
It's a white 4-track EP. But it's John McFarlane.
That's right, John.
Yeah.
He's a character.
I met him at the Edinburgh Guitar Show.
Alright,
a
okay.
few years ago. I hadn't seen him for 20 years.
If you're watching this, John, you've still got my high watt cabinet, but I bet you've sold it by now.
Very good, John. Brilliant guy. Another great guitar player we've known.
And Barbara's a great singer.
Oh God, yeah, of course, yeah.
Who lives not far from you in Bathgate.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. It's amazing. There's a guitar shop near where we are called Guitar, and I was in quite recently. I was telling Nelson I traded in 3 guitars to get one, and Chris, the manager of the shop, said to me, "You know what's amazing about all you guys?" He says, "First of all, you're also playing, and you all know each other, and you get this kind of stuff all the time where you go, where you mention someone, man, I saw him in 1981. You go, are you still playing? What? But we have the generation that thought we'd give up when we were 30, and we're still here.
Yeah, that's why I joined a blues band, so I can keep playing.
Can keep playing? Yeah. So, were you in a pop band as well around that?
I was, in sort of early 80s, and I mean, nothing happened with it. I don't think we actually played many gigs, but got a few recordings and so on.
Mm.
And then it must have been later in the 80s, I moved to Glasgow and kind of got serious about a day job just to pay the mortgage and stuff.
Yeah. Well, we've all been there.
Yeah. So, and then I ended up in a few bar bands in Glasgow and played around, just kept my hand in.
What bands are you in now? This might take a while.
So, I mean, Greg Taylor Band, which is
Yep.
the blues band
Yep.
I mentioned. Oscar Cordoba Band, which is jazz
Yep.
fusion. On the sensational Alex Harvey Experience Tribute Band,
Yep.
which I love playing with. Sin Dogs is still going.
Oh wow, didn't know that.
Second album going to be coming out. And the last one is The Miser Effect, which
Yes. I
is
heard the singles, great.
so on a bit of a hiatus at the moment, but just because one of the drawbacks nowadays is everyone's in so many bands. You know, it's not just one band for every player. Kind of make ends meet. You know?
The drummer Mark Bauer, Mark was one of that sort of. There's a music shop called Gordon Simpson's way back in the day, and like what a band you could have put together from the stuff. You have Gary Houston, right? You have Keith, Carl McNair, Carl who played the keys in Win, and Mark was the drum guy. And when Mark was in conflict of interest with me and Liam Kane from Vantage Point and guitar, Mark and I would always be first to every rehearsal, and he was saying to me, were you in Manchester or wherever? I used to be in a Def Leppard tribute band, and he said, were you in Manchester one night and somewhere else the next? I said, yeah. And I said, you want to think about doing that, because he did the Ian Pace thing really well. I said, and that's your thing, there'll be an opening for that. And he said, I like the old days when we were all in one band and that was your band and they were your mates and you were in that band and that was it. And I had to say, yes, so do I. But it's not like that now.
No, it's not.
I'm not sure why that is.
I think because back then there was probably less competition.
No, that's a good point.
And well, the other important point is less competition, more venues.
Yeah.
And you know how many weeks go by until you hear of another venue closing down.
It's all the time.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit divorced from that now, but I mean, when I see it, it's as if the COVID thing didn't kill off all the venues, it just gave them a lingering death. And we're now seeing...
I think there's a number of factors at play here, and you know, I'm going to take the risk of sounding a bit fatalistic, but there's a number of issues that are conspiring to kill off music, and one of them being that I honestly think it's true. Sadly, we might be living through the death of it, because it's less important to people nowadays. It's not such an important.
That's massive. Yeah. And you and I both have. I mean, how old's Neil?
Age 26.
Right, Daniel's 34, right? And Daniel's always got he's very well informed with music, he's got the thing in his car, but you don't get a CD player in your car now. You know, you have to stream it or whatever they do. But I remember in Llandudno, like it was like maybe one of you wouldn't all have it, but one of your mates, we had the House of the Holy.
Yeah.
And we went round to someone's house, I think it was Gary Williams, who was the other guitarist in the band, and we just listened to it, then we put it on again. And it was like, that was our world this Friday night, the new Zepp album. There's not...
No, there's not that sense of event or an occasion now.
No, it's not as important.
And another, I was speaking to somebody about this at the weekend, and we're in danger of sounding like still game here. But,
yes, we are, yeah.
But no longer do we have a situation where you go out and buy 3 or 4 music magazines a week, or newspapers, or whatever they were.
Is that the web? Is that not?
Yeah, I just think there's people have got other interests now. There's more choice. There's more choice of entertainment.
And there's a whole computer game.
And a whole computer game, and it's just people on their phones. It's a less important factor in people's lives now. Whereas it used to be huge.
Well, you know that Martin Miller wrote a book, I would recommend it to everyone, called Susie, Led Zeppelin and Me. And it's about like 15-year-old kids. It's a coming of age, wistful book. And it does make you smile and it makes you cry, and it's about the build-up to Zeppelin are coming to Green's Playhouse in 1972, and they're counting the days. That's kind of been lost from our culture. Yeah,
the other thing that's killing music, as far as I'm concerned, is purely a personal opinion, is the advent of the megadromes, places like Hydro, where people will go and see Fleetwood Mac playing and think nothing of spending 200 quid on a ticket, and then all that's associated with that. So those individuals spend 200, 300, 400 quid will not go to smaller gigs because they've spent their disposable income on that one gig.
And much like football, it's a game that only a portion of our society can indulge in. There's a lot of people that are excluded from that. I think that's completely wrong. It's changed. My ticket, Liverpool Empire, to see what the Hoople, 60 pence is going on it.
And it's then added onto that, there's the perfect storm of it being more difficult for people to get to gigs, or it costs more because of emission zones and because of exorbitant parking prices. And I was playing a gig in Edinburgh about 2 months ago at the Caves, so I parked next to Bannerman's. 3 hours, £18 to park.
Oh, you're kidding me?
Yeah.
Really? See, that's one thing I quite often say to people about, again, it is like still game, if maybe they're slightly less grumpy, but it is a bit like still game. Most of my first 15 years of being in bands, I couldn't drive, so someone would have to drive me. But when I eventually learned to drive, you'd go out and play a gig, and you might get £80 and your petrol is £5. But in recent years, it's like you might get £40 and your petrol's 30. So it's kind of been squeezed at both ends. So maybe that's another reason that people do that.
Yeah, everyone wants the 10% here and there, So
yeah,
it's difficult. It's becoming more and more difficult to sell tickets, and people are now of a mindset that they won't really buy tickets in advance. They'll turn up on the night.
I really feel for that one. I really feel for bands saying. It's almost in a sense humiliating. I really feel for bands saying, please get your tickets now. You should never drop names. Is that right? Elton John told me that once. Right. That's a joke. Obviously,
I hope so.
The delivery was lacking there. But Robin Beck, right? Robin Beck was going to play Nottingham at I forget the name of the venue. The Diamond in Nottingham, and I'd been there with Hysteria. It was a great venue. Dan Reid played that, and there's a part of me that's never grown up, and I love to see a stage with someone famous and go, I was standing right there last week, and I said, oh yeah, I know you're playing the Diamond. I'll definitely be there because I love Robin Beck. And she said, could I ask you to get your ticket early? And it didn't go ahead. You can't predict either. The Eglinton Toll Plaza, which was like a Bible John dance hall. I saw Nils Lofgren there.
I don't even know where that is. I know where Eglinton Toll is, but I don't know where the plaza was.
It's all like sort of furry wallpaper and stuff. And you walk down into the place and it was jam-packed. Or maybe that was the Bruce Springsteen effect, with Nils.
Yeah.
But when we were driving there, we were all in the car saying, this is going to be a disaster. There's going to be 20 people to see Nils. And my friends are all Nils super fans. Got in and it's jam-packed. So you can't predict what it's going to... On the subject of which, best gig you've ever seen?
Oof.
We'll have loads.
Well, I've seen a number of my heroes, as it were, and very difficult to pick one. I'll just mention a few. I mean, my first big gig has to be, I must have been only about 14, and a friend at school, his big sister, was going to see Focus. Right?
Oh, right.
So it's my first major gig, as it were. I was at the Empire in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Started at 11 o'clock at night and walked in, and the red lights of the marshals, I'm hooked from there on,
See, I've got exactly the same story of seeing Mountain.
Right.
And there was all sort of spangles and glittery stuff, and seeing the drums, and the support band for Mountain was the Jimmy McCulloch band.
All right, okay.
Yeah. And I remember seeing it and just going like, this was glamorous, like going to the circus maybe, if that's your bent, it's just hooked me.
And other notable ones I have to mention, Zappa at the Playhouse.
Oh, right, yeah, it's very iconic.
And Sab's Christmas gigs in '76 through the Apollo, and the amount of people who claimed they were there, I think it was like 400,000 or something, you know. But it's like the Celtic Seville story. You know?
I saw them as the support.
To
What the people.
right.
They were the support from, because there's, you know, Mott had Queen as the support, but they also had Sensational Alex Harvey and they were about 2 hours late, and they had the audience in the, you know, mainly him, but also I can remember thinking I've never heard a guitar sound like that. The SG Special, I think he had an AC30.
Yeah.
And it was like it was on fire, like it was going to explode anymore.
I've said it, I'll say it till the cows come home, best rock band ever to come out of Scotland.
Right, I'm going, maybe controversial one here, I'm going Gun for that. I love Gun. And I've got to put Delamitri in as well, Alex Harvey, yeah.
You think about the breadth of the songs and
the vision they had and the idea that, well, you'll know this better being what you do now, but you know, the idea that maybe a visual in an era where guys like, you know, the jeans and a t-shirt and just stood there, and you know.
It's not just the visual aspect. All 5 in that band were great musicians.
For sure.
All 5 of them.
Yeah.
And if you read some of the lyrics, Alex Harvey's lyrics, they're quite prophetic as well.
Man in the Jar.
One I'm thinking of is the Tail of Giant Stone Eater, and that's mid-70s. That's predicting the rise of computers and ecological issues and so on. So, guy was a crack genius, I think.
Yeah, died very young, didn't he?
Well,
although we thought he was much older, because
I think he was 47 or something like that.
Right, and his brother was in Soon the Crows, obviously.
Yeah. And
then General McCulloch. There's a guy called Paul Sally in Canada wrote a fantastic book about General McCulloch. And I mean, I think he's one that just slipped by. You know, did you ever see Wings?
No, never did.
Zepp?
No.
So Zepp at Earlscourt. That's another one that everyone and his dog claims to have been at. I know.
Of course. I was never a big Zepp fan.
Right, I'm a massive fan.
I just never saw the appeal, really.
Have you ever seen someone multiple times?
John Martin.
Right, that's a good one. Yeah.
I've seen John Martin a dozen or more.
Yeah.
And there's another crack genius, because there was times he would banter between songs was either in a Glaswegian accent or a home counties accent.
Really?
And actually in the Greg Taylor band I mentioned earlier, the drummer Dave Cantwell was in John Martin's touring band.
Frank Usher played guitar.
He did.
Yeah, Frank played, yeah.
And anyone who played with John Martin, I've met a few of these guys, will tell you that he could be a difficult guy.
Yeah. Do you think the first time you see like your favourite band, the first time I saw Wishbone was I'd never got to see, and I'd seen a few other bands, and every band of that era. You know, by that time I'd seen Skinners, you know, I'd seen Mountain, I'd seen Mott, Alex Harvey, I'd seen Rory Gallagher multiple times, because it seemed like he toured 365 days a year, but never seen my favourite, never seen Wishbone.
Never saw.
Never, and I mean, I was still quite young, I was still like 18.
Yeah.
But you know, the light, and there's that moment for anyone who's not experienced that. There's that moment where you're all talking to your friends, and then they stop the music through the PA, and then the lights go like that, and you can't not go. Ooh. You know, the whole crowd does that, and they came on and played Mother of Pearl.
I need to mention a couple of that. One is the Purple Burn tour in '74, and Bruce, who we mentioned earlier, him and I got tickets, front row tickets for that, and just a very, very memorable gig. Lots of dry ice and all that of the era, and first tour with Coverdale and Glenn Hughes, great gig, and multiple times I also saw Uriah Heep, mostly because I got Gary Thane, one of the most underrated bass players.
And he died young as well, didn't he?
I think he's one of the 27 Club.
Yeah, that's not good, is it?
No.
Do you know one of the best shows I've ever been at was at Clouds, Coasters in Edinburgh. And in that place I saw the Ramones, who all seemed to be 8 foot tall, right? But I also saw Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreakers.
In there?
Yeah, never seen it. The support act was the Models, who then became Adam the Ants, but Adam wasn't in the band. And the first band was Susie and the Banshees. And then Johnny Thunders and Walter Lure and Jerry Nolan. Jerry Nolan was actually a jazz drummer. He kind of grew up with, is it Eric Chris, first drummer in Peter Chris in Kiss. And they came in these like black trench coats, you know, carrying the guitars, just looking like, you know, do not look at me sideways. And they just played this set that was, you know, if you're a fan of, you know, the Dolls and Johnny Thunders, that's one that is up there in my, I don't know, top 5. Springsteen, you know, first time I saw Bruce Springsteen.
Do you know that era that you're talking about? That's, I kind of fell out of love with music at that time.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't get the punk thing at all, and I know that's not punk what you're talking about, but it's that sort of era.
Yeah.
And I didn't get the amount of coverage that was given to a type of music I didn't particularly like. So, but I fell back. Well, it was a new wave of British heavy metal that got me back into it.
For sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
And
I mean, Guilt Edge and Cadiz were
very bit at that time.
Very.
Yeah.
You could have just as easily been one of those bands.
Yeah.
Easily. Have you got? Nelson and I have got loads of mutual friends. Loads, right? Alan Knox.
Right. Aye.
Keyboard player, right? And guitar player. I always say that Alan is the most musical of any of the people I know. He's just really good. He's really witty and funny too. Alan said to me a while back, have you got your favourite band but also your own little band that nobody else knows about? So there's like your favourite band that's a massive band, but then, and his was Zeppelin, but it's kind of off the wall band that, you know, obviously now with the internet you could find other aficionados. His was XTC.
Yeah, I liked XTC.
Yeah.
XTC.
I mean, have you got a band like an unknown fan?
Again, there's probably too many to mention, but one that springs to mind is a guy that I'm going to see soon. Friend Rory McKenzie managed to get tickets for.
He was at Pat Travers, wasn't he?
Yeah. He managed to get tickets for Thomas Dolby, who's playing at St Luke's. I think Thomas Dolby is one of these guys who's underappreciated because I think he's a genius. His albums are usually very good. Or Tears for Fears will fall in that category as well.
Right.
Because a lot of people write them off as, you know, a pop band, but they're really clever band, really clever. Unknown bands, it's quite a current one actually. There's an Edinburgh band called High Fade, who...
Is that the
three guys?
Funk band?
Aye.
Yeah. They've gone from not to sexy really quick, haven't they?
I kind of characterise them as Prince meets Van Halen.
Right.
I think they're a great band, and I think they will, well, whatever make it means nowadays, I think what it means is they'll have years of touring ahead of them. They'll sell nothing, and you know, selling albums is not a thing nowadays, but they will have a lot. They will tour a lot. They'll sell a lot of merch. 3 very talented musicians. Great. I think they will become famous.
Trigger Hippie is mine.
Never heard of them.
Tom Bukovac and Joan Osborne.
Right.
It's from 2014, and they got this band together that he has said on a good night we're the best band in the world, on a bad night we were, you know, country rootsy band. You know, hand guitar, and Joan Osborne is fantastic singer.
This is the grumpy guy, isn't it?
Yeah. I was just that leads us into the next question. Best guitar player on the planet. I think I know what you're going to say.
Matteo Mancuso. I went down to Manchester for a gig recently just to see him playing, and he also had this amazing bass player called Federico Malaman.
Right.
And you know, it's a niche market, this, you know, but I think if anyone enjoys listening to guitar-based music, listen to this guy, because not only is he the ultimate technician and shredder, he's also very musical as well.
Yeah. When I think you sent me a clip of him quite a while back, and you know, one thing that I think is worth saying is if I didn't know that he played with his fingers, I wouldn't know. There's no lack of attack. There's no lack of
and it's very consistent as well.
It's very consistent, yeah. And he's got that thing that is it's like, you know, dying art. He's got a great vibrato. When he bends a note, it's really singy.
Great vibrato, great sound as well. You know, the guy's kind of got it all. And you know, before him, oh, that's somebody else I saw, you know, talking about memorable gigs. Derek Thompson, another mutual friend of ours, him and I went to see Al Di Meola in London many years ago.
Wow.
Now, to me, Al Di Meola was like the pinnacle of guitarists, but I think Mancuso's overtaken him and he's off in the distance now.
That would be the touchstone.
Aye.
If you wanted to say to someone, well, if you like. Yeah.
And I know the guitar playing is not a competition, but you know, if you listen to some of this guy's stuff, it's a really enjoyable stuff, and it's fairly high level, but worth taking the time to listen to. The guy's great.
Yeah. Mine. Sorry.
But it's a niche. I appreciate it's a niche.
Yeah. I mean, mine would be Tom Bukovac.
Right.
And I've said this to anyone who's, and probably like you, I get asked this question all the time, you know, from my friends and stuff. You know, and you know, there's this caveat, like, you know, I'm in no position to say I've got an opinion the same as anyone else, but you know, we have been doing it a long time, and that makes it slightly different. But you know, it's just an opinion. But for me, Tom Bukovac is the best player on the planet.
In your opinion,
in my opinion,
in your view.
Yeah. Sean Tubbs is very, very good as well. Again,
I don't even know who that is.
I think they're broadly speaking similar in that they're Nashville hot. In fact, Tom Bukovac's guitar role in Carrie Underwood was Sean Tubbs didn't take that.
Right.
Sean Tubbs would maybe be more to your taste because there's quite a lot of Robin Ford.
Okay.
In what he does, because Sean Tubbs has got this fantastic story where he says that he got the job with Carrie Underwood. I'm paraphrasing here, but you'll get the drift. Got this job with Carrie Underwood and he had to learn the set in a very short space of time. Last song on the set was the big hit Last Name. Midway through the song, Carrie Underwood goes, "Here we go," and it's a fiddle solo. And he just said to himself, "Oh great, you know, I've learned the whole set." And he then says, "And then this happened," and you hear Bukovac solo, which is like, holy fuck. And there's not that many guitar solos like you might say about something like Anthem. You know, when you heard that, you tell all your friends, "Yeah, this," you know.
His best solo, Dance of Life, one that Keith Moore turned me on to.
Yeah, Carrera Sici.
The scary, going back and mentioning Mancuso again, the scary thing is, when you and I were learning, you know decades ago, you were lifting up a stylus and doing it, and how do you play that bit, and how do you play that bit. Now we've got a generation of people who are watching YouTube, and there'll be I say a generation, with kids that are still interested in playing an instrument, will be watching Mancuso play and learning that. So I don't know where a guitar's going to be in 10 years' time.
There'll be somebody writing that out already. There'll be somebody, but that's a whole other thing. When funny you say that, because I've spent most of this week trying to figure out, you know, Aerosmith, Train Kept a Roll, and Steve Hunter actually did the solos. And I love Aerosmith, and I love Steve Hunter and Dave Wagner. And I saw a few versions of it, and there's this thing now where people go on YouTube, but they've got the record playing. And they've got...
the reaction things?
Well, no, they've got the record playing, but they're playing as well. But the record's there, and they're there. You know, it's a lot harder to play without the backing. Well, this is what he played, because you've got no safety net. You've got no... the reaction thing I don't understand at all. No, I don't get that at all. You might as well put on a clip of Johan Cruyff.
It's cheap and it's easy to do.
But it's massively popular.
I know.
Massively popular. We've got about 5 minutes before this runs out. So, next.
What else am I doing?
What else are you doing? Yep.
Well, as of about 2 years ago, started working with Shock City Productions.
Yes.
So regularly put on gigs, working with Peter McFarlane, Brian Stewart, Eddie Traynor, and we do gigs further and further afield. We've been putting gigs on Newcastle and further afield in England. We lost the Hard Rock Cafe recently, which just closed down without...
Bit of a shock, that one.
Oh, totally. Bit of a shock, that.
Sorry. And you get a burger and chips when you play, you know? Hey.
No, it was a very well located place, and it was next to train station, next to the
Mhm.
underground.
Mhm.
So it's a pity that's gone. So we're looking at other possibilities at the moment.
Mhm.
A few venues that could work, some might not work, but keeping going. And there's a lot of gigs coming up for Shock over the next year or more.
Are you ever surprised, like you and I saw Richie Kotzen and Adrian Smith? The place is jam packed.
Yeah.
And it's one of these things where you kind of feel maybe I'm the only person in this area who bought that album, and you go there and it's jam packed. Maybe it's getting the size right.
But do you know why it's jam packed? My theory, because of Adrian Smith, because of Maiden.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I mean, Richie Kotzen, I saw him in the caves, and I was trying to do the maths. It was not a strong point. Like, how can that be viable? How can it be viable?
So a lot of gigs are not, and you know,
Yeah, it's great as well. It's really good.
that's kind of the model for a lot of promoters, is that some gigs will work and some won't. So it's swings and roundabouts.
That is a kind of business model, isn't it? That some things will be successful and some won't.
And some are surprisingly successful,
Hmm?
and some that you think will sell nothing.
Yeah, that must be heartbreaking. That must be. Yeah.
It's not great. It's not
Yeah.
great. So
what
buy
about
your
ambitions?
tickets early, folks.
What about ambitions? What would you like to still do?
Keep playing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
Yeah, and I mean,
Whoever thought we'd be here going back to the moon?
Yeah.
40 years ago.
Well, yeah, and I suppose there are bands out there that are the first generation to play into their dotage almost, and I'm thinking the Stones. I mean, who would have thought they would still be going?
It's just unbelievable. Great. I think it's great. I mean, I saw Springsteen last May. Bruce, Miami, Knowles. And it was fantastic.
And AC/DC, but some of the recordings I've seen of them recently doesn't sound great.
Yeah.
I just wonder how much pressure is put on these guys are multi-millionaires. You wonder how much pressure is put on them because they are money-making machines.
See, I see that differently. I see the and you and I will have felt this. I feel that the drug of going on stage is massive, and if I were successful, and at their age, I wouldn't want to give up. I just wouldn't.
No, I know. I get that, and I suppose again you could use the analogy with football players, and when they retire, what do they do?
Well, I think the thing is, it's funny you say that because I watched the Gary Neville thing last week when he said to Alex Ferguson, "Suddenly I'm going to lose the game for you," and he knew his legs were gone. It's not quite the same for us, but I mean, Aldo Meola said recently, if he tried to play that stuff now, he'd have a heart attack. Now I'm sure he can play that stuff in his sleep. But there is a sort of physicality of it as well. I mean, I think most big bands will take a trainer on stage. They might have a gym. It's a physical thing. Yeah.
There's no way that Keith Richards was sitting back with a bottle of Jack and right.
No, he's given all that stuff up, I believe.
Oh, is it? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
he's given it all up. Yeah,
Right.
he's a super healthy guy.
Just got to hope he's going to give it a guitar sometime then.
Right, Nelson McFarlane, one of my favourite people, one of my favourite musicians. All to say, thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheers.
That was cracking.